Hey everyone, I'm Mike from theparkprodigy.com, and if you're watching this video, you're most likely planning a Disney World vacation in 2026, but you know that picking the wrong week can cost you hundreds of dollars and add hours of wasted time waiting in lines. Well, I have analyzed weekly average costs for 4-day Disney World base tickets, and I'm breaking down the best and worst weeks for you to visit Walt Disney World in 2026, and I'm going to give you some other options to maybe swap out some dates if you are flexible. And what might shock you is picking the difference between the slowest time in the month of September alone can save you $140 per person. And it doesn't even take into account when we start to break down comparing the cheapest time to the most expensive time, which is Christmas, which can actually save you up to $220 per person. So if you're planning a trip to Walt Disney World in 2026, stick around till the end as I'm about to break down the slowest weeks, the cheapest weeks, the weeks to avoid, those holiday weeks, and those infamous cheerleading competitions that bring heavy crowds, and how to trade busy weeks for better ones. As always, I'm very excited, so let's go get started. Thank you again so much for checking out this video. Like I said, I'm about to break down the best and the worst weeks to visit Walt Disney World in 2026. And realistically, you'll see in the intro, I spoke about the slowest and then the cheapest weeks. They kind of go hand in hand. Some of the important things to understand going into this video is what I'm doing is I actually am comparing the 4-day Disney World base ticket prices. I broke it down by week and I'm averaging the ticket prices to try to figure out, okay, what is the cheapest week within each month? I'm doing a straight week starting on Sunday and I'm ending on Saturday. The reason why I picked the 4-day Disney World base ticket is because there's 4 Disney World parks. So most families, and I help families a ton visit Walt Disney World, most families will come for at least 6 to 7 days, and most families do visit each of the Disney World theme parks, and a lot of them double down, let's say, on Magic Kingdom. So some of the biggest problems that I see families face is a lot of times families are picking dates around those school breaks, and they do end up paying peak prices. I also see that sometimes you can't get around going during a specific month. It just works best for your family. Well, maybe you do have some flexibility, and that's why we're breaking it down by month to still give you what we are seeing as the projected slowest week within that month. Okay, so now let's jump right in, and we're going to start, of course, with January, and we're going to break down what we are projecting to be the best week to visit in January. And we do have January 4th to the 10th, 2026, with the average 4-day ticket price being $635 per person. Now, on the flip side, on the high side, we have the worst projected week to be January 25th to the 31st, with the average 4-day ticket price being $654. So within January, there are a couple different things we have to keep in mind. We do have Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which is on Monday, January 19th. And so for that week, I also looked. So I did the week of January 18th to the 24th, and it is in at a close kind of third as the worst week to visit Walt Disney World in January, with the average ticket price being $652. So it's only $2 cheaper than the worst week right after. And so I would say kind of keep that in mind. That's also going to be a moderately busy week based on what we're looking at. And then I did speak about those cheerleading competitions earlier in the video, that they can bring large crowds. Specifically, I would say it's worse at Walt Disney World than it is over at Universal Orlando. And so we do have a cheerleading competition, which is the UCA National High School Cheerleading Competition, which is from January 30th to February 8th. And so I do think that has something to do with maybe that last week being the worst week in January. Okay, but keeping the video going, moving over to February of 2026. So what is the best week to visit in February? Well, we are projecting towards the end of February. We have February 22nd to the 28th, 2026, with the average 4-day ticket price being $661 per person. Now, on the high side, we do have the week of February 8th to the 14th being what is projected to be the busiest week in Feb, with the average ticket price being $678 per person. So what's going on during that week? Why is that projected to be the busiest week? Well, we do have Monday, February 16th as Washington's birthday. And so I also went and I looked at, let's say, starting if you were visiting on that week, which is typically also midwinter break. So if you were visiting from February 16th through the 20th, the average ticket price was $676. So again, we're only $2 less than your worst week there. So I would say you're still going to have moderately busy crowds during that week as well. But on the flip side, what I would say about January and February is that there are some really good pockets within these months, but also I think that's something that you can't look past, as they are probably two of the most enjoyable months to visit Walt Disney World from a weather standpoint. And we also do have have the really popular and fun Festival of the Arts going on at Epcot, so it is something you do just have to keep in mind as well. But moving over to our next month, and we have March. So what is the best week to visit Walt Disney World in March? And we do have the first week, so March 1st to the 7th, 2026, with the average ticket price costing $663 per person. Now you'll see there's not a huge gap in March, similar to February, where on the high side, the worst week to visit in March is going to be March 29th through April 4th, and we have the average ticket price at $679 per person. So, and you'll see, similar to what I said in my Universe Orlando video, where I did break this down, best weeks and worst weeks over there, March and April are really tricky months to kind of pick slow times, because it's really spring break throughout the country. Everyone's kind of at certain points getting off for a spring break, right? So we do have a lot of people visiting the parks during those 2 months. It really doesn't matter when you plan to come in. And so when you look at it, it makes sense why that first week is projected to be the slowest, because typically when we start to look at spring break, it likely falls between March 10th to the 17th or March 17th to the 24th. So that first week definitely is the best month to visit Walt Disney World until the end of April again. And so one more thing to note is that within that little March period, we also have a cheerleading competition going on from March 13th to the 15th. And then moving over to April, like I said, the best month to visit Walt Disney World in April is going to be towards the end of this month. And that's because we're really getting past and done with spring break. And so the best week is going to be April 26th to May 2nd, 2026. And we have the average 4-day ticket price at $649 per person. And so now in April next year, we do have Easter. Easter's on April 5th, 2026. So at no surprise, the busiest week projected is April 5th to April 11th, with the average ticket price going in at $676 per person. And that's our biggest gap now in a while. We're going from $649 up to $676. And we do have two cheerleading competitions in April that you do have to be mindful of. The first one is the All-Star World Championship, which is April 16th to the 19th. And we also have the Cheerleading Worlds at the ESPN Wide World of Sport, and that is going to be April 24th to the 27th. All right, moving over to May, and you'll see really the beginning of May, we are starting to see some crowds pull back a little bit. We are starting to see the weather warm up a lot, especially in Orlando. It can get relatively hot in May, so keep that in mind. But what are the best and worst weeks? So we have the best week projected to be May 11th to May 16th, with the average ticket price being $649 per person. And on the flip side, the worst week in May is projected to be May 17th to the 23rd, with the average ticket price to be $666 per person. So we do have a holiday in May, which is Memorial Day, and it falls on May 25th. But I would also say one of the important things to keep in mind in May is that schools down south do start to get off from school, and then you start to get summer breaks. So it can get busier in the parks as we get towards the end of May. But what we've seen the past couple years is your typical summer holidays, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, the parks have not been as busy. I think a lot of families those holidays go hand in hand with beach vacations, especially where I grew up in New York. A lot of families go down the shore or out to the Hamptons, whatever it might be. A lot of families, I feel like that's what they kind of keep in the back of their head. So we haven't seen these huge crowds come to the park. So Memorial Day is not the worst week in May. So now jumping into June, we're going back to those moderately busy time periods across the board. Of course, and as we get into June, especially towards the end of June, all schools are really out and families really start taking those summer vacations. So what is the best and the worst week to visit in June? We have the best week as June 7th to the 13th, with the average ticket price being $642, and the worst week in June being the 21st to the 27th, with the average ticket price at $657. So it's not a huge gap there. Another important holiday to keep in mind is the Juneteenth national holiday. So that falls on Friday in 2026. So maybe that will kind of increase crowds on that weekend. But another important thing to keep in mind is, of course, going into 4th of July. 4th of July weekend is kind of tied into June, right? And so what I thought was funny about 4th of July weekend is when I go from, let's say, June 28th to July 4th, the average ticket price was $643, which is not that much more than the best week to visit in June, which was $642. So best week in June was $642. The week of 4th of July was $643. You could see, like I said, I don't think that it's just me picking this up. I think the numbers right there really show that 4th of July weekend has not been as busy these past couple years in the parks as it might have been back in the day. Okay, but what about the rest of July? And before we get to that, we are about halfway done with this video, and I just wanted to take a second to say thank you so much for checking this video out until this point. I do hope that you're finding it helpful, and if you are, please just be sure to subscribe to our channel, as I have a lot more similar videos coming out in the coming weeks to keep you as prepared as possible for your next Walt Disney World vacation. But what is the best and worst weeks to visit in July? And so we have the best week being July 26th to August 1st, and the average ticket price is $590 $594 per person. And on the high side, we have July 5th to the 11th, with the average ticket price being $613 per person. And you could see, boom, right after that 4th of July, we're back to pretty moderately high ticket prices. And again, I think that shows you that the crowds are not going to the parks for the actual holidays, but right after, we're boom, right back into the swing of things. And so that brings us over to August. And August actually surprised me, because what if I told you that August had the cheapest 7-day average ticket price for those 4 days anyway? So we have the lowest average week projected to be August 16th to the 22nd, with the average ticket price being $503 per person. And that is the lowest overall for the year. So we have on the high side, though, the first week of August, the 2nd to the 8th, where the ticket pricing is $571 per person. So another important thing to keep in mind with August is that it is insanely hot in Florida, and the humidity in Florida is off the charts. So that's probably the biggest reason why it is on the cheaper side towards the end of August. Plus, kids are going back to school, and so there's a lot of things, right? But another important thing to keep in mind is that this is when we start to see the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween parties. So you do have to keep that in mind, as that is going to be an impact on your trip. And moving over to September, we also have some really great times to visit in September. So I actually thought September was going to be the lowest, but it wasn't. It was the second lowest, where we have the best projected week to be September 6th to the 12th, with the 4-day average ticket price being $505 per person. So $2 more than that best week in August. And then on the flip side, when we go to the highest projected week in September, we have September 27th to October 3rd. The ticket pricing goes back up to $643 per person. And like I said earlier, you could see right there, just between September alone, picking the best versus worst week can save you $140 per person right there. And so the holiday to keep in mind in September is, of course, going to be Labor Day. But like I said, Labor Day the past couple years has not been a crazy kind of big draw for families to the parks. So moving over to October, and October is by far one of my favorite times to be in Walt Disney World. And so we have the lowest projected week to be October 25th to the 31st. And so the average ticket price is going to be $665 per person. Now on the high side, the highest projected week is October 4th to the 10th. And so we have that's going into the weekend of Columbus Day in October. So what I did was, we have the average ticket price for the 4th to the 10th at $679. And then taking it one step further, that week, so let's say that you went the actual week of Columbus Day, it's in at $676. So just $3 less. So I think, again, crowds will probably be pretty consistent across those 2 weeks. And that brings us to November. And November is a tricky one to kind of try to tackle, because of you're going into the Christmas in the parks, the first Mickey's Very Merry Christmas party. It's actually, I'm recording this video in November 2025. It is November 7th, and we're going to the first Christmas party tonight. So you have the first couple Christmas parties, and then of course you have a couple holidays within November. So what is the lowest week projected? It's November 1st to the 7th. It kind of makes sense because there's not that much going on that first week. So we have ticket pricing being in at $669. And then what's the highest? Well, the highest projected week is going to be Thanksgiving week, where we have the ticket pricing being in at $705 per person. Of course, we do have to keep in mind Veterans Day weekend in that week, where we have ticket prices coming in at $683, and that's going to be on November 11th. And now moving over to December, another tricky month because of the holidays. So we do have the best week projected to be December 6th to the 12th, and the average price is going to be $687. And then on the high side, of course, to no surprise, we have December 20th to the 26th, with the average ticket price costing $724 per person, and that is the highest overall for the year. So this is projected to be the busiest time of year in Walt Disney World. I looked at the week after, just the 26th forward, and the average price was $716 for the tickets. So as you can see, right kind of in the heart of the Christmas break is projected to be the worst week to visit Walt Disney World in 2026. And so as you can see, there are some really great times to visit the parks, but overall, I hope this video essentially helped you just kind of pick the best week within each month if you don't really have much flexibility. But overall, the best week to visit Walt Disney World in 2026, based on my projections, is going to be August 16th to the 22nd, with the average price being at $503. Second place is September 6th to the 12th, with that average ticket price being $505. And third is July 26th to August 1st, with the average ticket price being $594. On the flip side, the three worst are going to be, in at number one, the worst week is December 20th to the 26th, with the ticket price being $724. Number two, we have November 22nd to the 28th, with the ticket pricing being $705. And then in at number three, we have October 4th to the 10th, with the ticket pricing being $679. Okay, so that is everyone. But before we let you go, what are some ways that you can still try to get the most out of your trip? Well, there are some micro shifts. So if you know that you're visiting during a busier time of year, a busier week, you can try to game plan in and shift around some of the days that you're going to visit each park. So maybe you're going to visit Tuesday to Saturday instead of on the weekends, right? The heart of the weekends, to try to kind of dodge those heavy crowds. I always say though, when it comes down to that, I think having a solid game plan is more important than picking and then nailing the best park on the best day. Don't get me wrong, it can help, but if you still just go into that day without a game plan on which rides you want to go on, how the lightning lanes work, all that good stuff, dining reservations, you're still going to struggle. So I would say always lean towards having a solid game plan than worrying over the top about picking the best day for each park. Some of the other ways you can get the most out of your time is, of course, to make sure you're taking advantage of rope dropping, get there really, really early, and of course, staying late at night to get on some of those high demand rides with lower wait times. And of course, if you feel like you're going to struggle, if you feel like it's going to be a lot, I definitely would keep in mind that there are better times to visit, not only just for lower crowds, but like I said, better weather. It is such a more enjoyable experience if you have some good weather on your side, and it just becomes a lot more manageable than being in the parks, right, in the middle of August. And it makes sense. A lot of families know this, and that's why Disney is trying to get you to go to the parks in August, and you will save a buck, right? You definitely will come out on top from a budget standpoint, but you have to decide, is that worth being there in August compared to, let's say, in January or February when it won't be as crazy from a weather standpoint. But that is it, everyone. That is essentially the best and worst weeks to visit Walt Disney World in 2026. I really hope you found this video helpful, and if you are in the process of planning that Disney World trip and it seems like you need a little additional help, just be sure to go check out our website, theparkprodigy.com. And right now, as a thank you, we do have a special promo where we are running up to an extra $250 back in a Disney gift card for anyone who books their next Walt Disney World vacation through our small business, The Park Prodigy. So just be sure to go check out our website to learn more about that. And until next time, I will talk to you soon.